So now that you've played that game, we're going to be learning how to generally solve equations, and to do that we need to learn about inverse operations. So what are inverse operations? Well, first of all, equations are solved by using inverse operations. The second thing is that you need to think of inverse operations as actions that undo each other. So let's take, for example, everyday life scenarios. So an action would be to write. The inverse that is to erase. Another action would be to fill a cup. What do you think the inverse of that is? Or what undoes to fill a cup? Empty a cup. What's the inverse of destroying a sandcastle? Building a sandcastle. So now let's look at math stuff. What undoes adding? What's the inverse? Subtracting. What is the inverse of subtracting? Adding. What is the inverse of multiplying? Dividing. What is the inverse of dividing? Multiplying. Okay, let's go ahead and see these things in action. So if the equation has addition, then the inverse operation to use is subtraction. Okay, so here I have x plus 3 equals 7. I'm going to go ahead and use a line to divide the left side and the right side. So I need to use the inverse. The inverse of positive 3 is negative 3, or minus 3, sorry. So here I would get 0. I still have x left. 7 minus 3 is 4. So my answer would be x equals 4. Whoopsie, sorry about that. Now let's look at the next one. If the equation has subtracting, then the inverse operation to use is addition. Once again, I'm going to go ahead and draw my line to divide the left side from the right side. So here I have minus 2, so I'm going to add 2. And what I do to one side, I have to do it to the other. Remember from yesterday's video? So minus 2 plus 2, that's 0. I have x. I still have my equal sign. 3 plus 2 is 5. So my answer is x equals 5. All right. Next one. If the equation has multiplication, then the inverse operation to use is division. So here I have, remember, when there's a number and a variable together, in that video, what did it say? That the operation is multiplication. So here, now I have to use division. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3. 3 divided by 3, that's 1. So I get 1x, or just x, equals 12 divided by 3 is 4. So x equals 4. Let's move on to the next one. If the blank has division, then the inverse operation to use is blank. So if the equation has division, then the inverse operation to use is multiplication. Okay, let's look at this problem. It's the same problem, but written in different ways. So, for example, I'm going to multiply by 3 because I'm dividing by 3. So what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. This 3 and this 3 become a 1. I'm left with x equals 6 times 3 is 18. So here x equals 18. So remember, same problem. I can also multiply what we call the reciprocal. So 3 over 1, this and 1 becomes 1, this 3 and this 3 become 1. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. 6 times 3 is 18 over 1. 18 over 1 is the same thing as just 18. So once again, x equals 18. Alright guys, so since it is quite a few problems, I'll go ahead and do some with you. For example, let's look at a more trickier one. Let's look at number 6. What is going on here? Go ahead and name the operation. Am I adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing? So, x over negative 7 equals 7. Right now, I'm currently dividing by negative 7. So, what is my inverse operation? I need to multiply both sides by negative 7. I get that these two are going to get 1s. I'm left with x equals 7 times negative 7 is negative 49. Okay. All right. Let's do number 8. What operation's going on right now? Did you say multiplication? Because that's correct. So, what is the inverse? How do I undo multiplication? Yep, I divide. What do you think I'm going to divide by? Hopefully you said negative 3 and not just 3. So remember, we do it on both sides. I get these are equal to 1. X equals a positive divided by a negative is negative. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So I get x equals negative 2. All right. And notice how these are switched right here. It's still the same thing, you guys. Okay, so you would draw your line. Okay, my goal is to get x by itself. Remember, we had to isolate x. So how would I get rid of x plus 8? How would I get rid of this plus 8? What's the opposite? Sorry, what undoes adding 8? Subtracting 8. So minus 8 minus 8. This would be 0. I still have x on this side. 1 minus 8 is negative 7. Okay, so you still do the same thing even though the variable is now on the right-hand side. Okay, I hope this video helps and that you're able to do today's work.